Jaden Risner, Chief Executive Officer of FamilyProud.com, is a graduate of the Naval Academy, UCSD MBA program, and Naval Aviator for over 12 years. Under his leadership, he helped hospitalized Navy sailors expand their support networks while away from their families. The vision for Family Proud was strengthened after his own mother suffered a heart attack, and he faced the struggle of providing long-distance care. Today's guest, Jaden Risner, is a friend of mine who I served with in the Navy. He is an entrepreneur who started a program, Family Proud, which provides a much-needed networking resource for families going through serious health issues and an opportunity for people to pay it forward by becoming supporters. In this episode, we'll talk to him about his Navy career, how he started the program, the ups and downs of that, lessons learned, and where he plans to go with Family Proud. Hey guys, we're here today with my friend Jaden Risner. We served in the Navy together. Jaden's a pilot, and he spent time serving in the special operations community where he deployed, and that's where we met, and now is a Navy reservist who has his own company called Family Proud. So Jaden, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Great to catch up, and thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So you're in San Diego right now, is that right?
San Diego.
Yep. How's the family and everyone doing?
Yeah, everything's good. Obviously with all the COVID stuff going on, mostly locked down, but trying to keep things as normal as possible. It's almost like deployment mode with plus the amenities and minus the excitement, but all
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple people who've said it's all good, man. Just it's no different from deployment.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was talking to do you know Diego Ugalde?
Yeah.
So I was talking to him, and we were talking about being in there with your family, and it's like deployment. And I said, we were talking about dealing with family during quarantine. Like how you can kind of butt heads a little bit when you're cooped up.
Yep.
And I said, yeah, dude, it's just like deployment. Where around month 3 or 4, if somebody drinks your rip it is game
That's
on,
it.
dude.
That's
like
it.
it's over. I was that way. So in Iraq, in Al Asad, the last deployment that I went on in 2015, we had an extremely limited number of Diet Cokes, and those were like my thing. Like I've kind of quit, but I loved Diet Coke, like the flavor.
Now I know who stole all my Diet Cokes. I found the culprit.
I would whenever we would get some, I'd be like, let me just get one in the fridge, put in the back. And I would save it up. I would build up to it. Like, oh, I can put it off today, but tomorrow night I'm going to drink this Diet Coke, and it's going to be the best thing ever. I think probably people have something like that when they're on deployment. And yeah, if somebody drank that, I was pissed. I was like, come on, man. I had that one in there for me.
That's right. I'm getting there.
So yeah. But has it been good? You guys figuring it out? Any tips or tricks you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, fortunate with what I'm doing for work and everything, just been able to work remote. I mean, obviously on the reserve side, Navy's trying to figure things out and, take care of people. And, it's, just fortunate right now to kind of just be able to stay put, work remote. I know a lot of people out there, having to either do their essential stuff in person. And, obviously most of them are the healthcare professionals and, people holding down all the regular services. So I guess doing our part, just staying home for now. Right. So.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny because my wife is a medical professional, and some of her friends are in Guam right now, helping the Teddy Roosevelt guys and gals. That whole thing has totally gone out of control. But yeah, shout out to the frontline medical people who are making major sacrifices right now. Away from their friends and family, putting themselves at risk. A lot of healthcare providers have fallen ill and passed away from this, just doing their job. It's not to be taken lightly at all.
Definitely not.
So with that, talking about COVID, it is astonishingly relevant to what you're on here, mainly to talk about, which is Family Proud. which if you want to just kind of, yeah, I've talked to you about it. I've read your website. I've checked out your Instagram, which, by the way, I really like those videos that you guys posted, those
Nice.
professionally produced videos.
Yeah, we had a good,
Really good.
yeah,
If
thanks,
you
man.
want to,
Let them know.
yeah, it's really good. If you want to just kind of maybe talk about what Family Proud is.
Yeah, no, sure, appreciate it. Yeah, so Family Proud is essentially a software tool. We're changing the way our loved ones navigate hardship, and we always say like our mission at Family Proud is to help bring peace of mind to patients and families. We know that peace of mind is different for every family. Some families it's keeping food on the table. Some families that peace of mind is figuring out who to talk to, what to do next, and really we break it down into three buckets, like the emotional, the financial, and the logistical. And we know those needs change depending on what you're going through. And so, yeah, software tool that allows now families or their caregivers or the patients themselves to connect to other patients and families that truly understand. So talk to someone who's been through that adversity before, be able to share those lessons learned, connect with them. So that's the emotional aspect. The financial aspect, we have an ability to connect to financial resources, but also think like a wedding registry, but for patients and families. And our service actually provides kind of these product recommendations based on the hardship. So instead of just a blanket GoFundMe that is victim to compassion fatigue, which we call over time, in terms of the amount of support. Now, you as a supporter, even if you're on the other side of the world or other side of the country, providing that remote support, you know exactly what support you're providing, whether it's helping pay for someone's food for that week, paying for their parking, paying for some care items that aren't covered traditionally, whether by the insurance side. So, yeah, no, it's feel fortunate. I think as on the veteran side, being able to find something that's still very service aligned and doing good things. It's feel fortunate for that.
Yeah. How did this start for you?
Yeah, it's was in the mix. Doing active duty all good amount of years there, and one of my deployments, mom had a heart attack. So that concept, Red Cross message, notification, and feeling pretty helpless, right, other side of the world. And in that particular time, just there wasn't a ton of support, in terms of how am I getting updates. There's nothing I can really do, for the time being, and making sure that she was taken care of back home, connected to the right resources. So that was the initial inspiration. And as you're familiar with, a couple deployments later, another deployment. Father was diagnosed with cancer, so he was, that was another notification aspect, and so really became on the personal side, seeing those touch points. And actually, a number of years ago, moved my mom down to San Diego, became her informal caregiver. One of the big reasons for me leaving active duty. But yeah, being able to see, despite very relevant right now, like you said, all the amazing things healthcare workers do, there's still massive amounts of burden on the family and caregivers, and a lot of things that are not addressed. And so the inspiration was, how do we change that for them through technology, that's not just a Facebook group or not just a surface level type thing. And actually went back to school here in San Diego and met the our co-founder Clay, who was a Marine Corps staff sergeant, was a CI guy. He was a two-time cancer survivor within Wounded Warrior Battalion, and so he understood the patient aspect. And so we became brothers pretty quickly and joined forces, where I had the caregiver type background experience and he had the patient side. And that was the Family Proud was born.
I'm sorry to hear about your family, your mom and dad dealing with health issues. It's something that eventually every family is going to deal with. And it's one thing I was thinking about before we got on here today. I was thinking about this yesterday when I was kind of in my mind going through, what I wanted to talk to you about, was, and something I've kind of always considered about people who do anything when it comes to healthcare is it takes a lot to say that you want to be there for somebody when they're going through the worst thing in their life, that you want to,
Yeah.
that you want to get involved, cause it's not a happy time.
No,
But
it's a
it's,
heavy space. Yeah, it's
yeah,
a heavy space for sure. Yep.
yeah. And it is a time that people need as much support as possible. And recently I've found myself getting, like seeking out these like crowdfunded, without dropping any big company names, like crowdfunded healthcare donation pages. Like I saw one for a mother of two, I think, who was a single mother, had kids when she was in high school, went to college, went to medical school, became a doctor, went to residency, graduated residency, was about to start a job when she was diagnosed with cancer, but because she hadn't started her job, had no health insurance. And because of the cancer, she lost brain function and could never go back to practicing as a doctor. And like, I was like crippled by it, like it's
Yeah.
the saddest thing. I can't imagine a more heartbreaking like experience to go through after all of that. And she does that for her family and then ends up in this situation. A friend of mine from high school, who has two kids and was pregnant, had her husband get diagnosed with lung cancer, terminal.
Mhm.
And again, I found out because of a crowdfunding campaign, and he passed away the day their daughter was born, which from the time that he was diagnosed, because he was experiencing major symptoms, but had been not going to the doctor up until this point, finally goes, diagnosed, given basically a timeline. It was like 90 days later, he passed away on the day their daughter was born. And I see these families, oh my God. So like, this is worse than anything I've ever been through in my life by 100 miles.
Yep.
And being able to help is important, but there's really not much else out there for that. I've never heard of anything else for support except for crowdfunding, which is not targeted for healthcare.
Yeah,
So
no,
there's
exactly. I mean,
gaps
yeah,
in there.
yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of like siloed, like social walls and support groups and that, but to actually, there's only so many likes or, condolences you can send. Like, what are we actually doing to support the family? Of course, like the immediate family or friends, whatever and when we say family, it's not just relatives, right? Sometimes it's not your relatives. It could be your fellow unit members. It can be your community, whatever your community is to you, your organization, your church, whatever's important to you, that's your family, right? And so, yeah, in terms of like tangible support, usually there's a few there just kind of quarterbacking everything and taking care of it. But not everyone is lucky to have that type of family, one, and then two, to your point, there's nothing that is a ton of tangible, actions in terms of, because one of the biggest questions oftentimes is, hey, how can I help? Or you're overseas, something happens to one of our mutual friends here in San Diego. The reality of life is it's hard to just pick up and be there. So how do you, how can you be there? How can you stay up to date? How can you still feel connected and supporting them? And that's the bridge that we're trying to close that gap and provide that kind of full circle support. And it's up to the family, right? Some families are more private than others. There's a lot of behavioral science stuff that goes into it too, because the asking for help is also, a challenge at times. And so how do we present it so it's actually empowering, where by you sharing your lessons learned through the adversity that you're going through or have overcome, you're actually helping others. So it's always focused around supporting others, even if you're the one that is going through that hardship. And so, yeah, it's heavy space for sure. But it's definitely there's definitely a ton of need out there, unfortunately, and especially recent events, highlights that the need actually increases. Unfortunately, the need of families will always be there, right? So that's kind of the bottom line there.
Yeah. Yeah. And through Family Proud, there's a way to connect with people around you who you might not know. Is that true? Who might be going through similar stuff, or if you're just looking to help?
Yep, exactly. So if you have gone through something, you can sign up as a supporter. If you're someone that's, feels comfortable connecting to someone else, or you want to share those lessons learned, you can come on, be a supporter, allow others to reach out to you. And so that's one way of empowerment, is being a supporter. And then if you're looking for support, the ability to go on there and now find others who've gone through that adversity, right? So, as we grow, that will continue to expand, but the ability to be able to say, I've been diagnosed with this cancer. Let me see who's, within 50 miles as a fellow veteran that has gone through this, or whatever that criteria may be. Another mom whose son is diagnosed, and it's not just cancer, right? It can be other areas of adversity, a fellow caregiver, but the ability to actually have that personal connection and reach out is what's more powerful than, well, let me just go into a social media support group, to leave the company names out, and just join a group of a couple thousand people and browse through those message walls. So it's we're really just trying to facilitate that personal and emotional ties and experience and relationships, while also providing that tangible support opportunity. So yeah, definitely, yeah, it's a big space. So
It helps. So I'm just going to speak from experience of a part of the reason why I started this show was connecting with people and sharing stories, because of a lot of mental health issues. Like I personally had a lot of struggling with anxiety, uh, after the way I describe it is after seeing some things around the world that we've seen, disappointment, like I can't believe this stuff. I can't believe this is the way the world is in a lot of cases, after deployment after deployment,
yeah,
in the Navy, you're like, oh my God, this sucks, and then we've all lost friends. We've all gone through our own things, and I like to come on here and talk to people and get people talking about their story, their experiences. And a lot of times I'm like, I get it, me too. Or I say something and they're like, oh yeah, same here. And then I hope people listening are like, also, me too also, because
right.
it's important to know that you're not alone. It can feel these, and this ties back into healthcare, mental health and healthcare, same space. I think both are very important. I think mental health care is very important. But knowing that you're not the only one going through something is huge. There's a picture on your Instagram that, like, I don't know, I found to be it was like it really hit the nail on the head for me. Because I saw the picture, I didn't have to read the description to understand it. It's a apartment building, and in all the windows are different people, but they're all going through something, and they're neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe they could help each other with what they're going through, because everybody is going through something. We tend not to share it, but because, pride, or don't want to show any weakness or whatever, or you don't want to burden people with your problems, but you don't have to burden people. You can just find mutual support,
Right. Yep.
And I think that's really great, really powerful
Yeah.
stuff.
No, that is powerful, and I think that's yeah, 100% agree. And the mental health aspect is huge. I mean, there's huge mental health aspects. Being caregivers, being patient, being a survivor. Regardless, whatever you relate with. And yeah, it's a big space. We're actually looking at how we can, even right now with all the healthcare professionals, right? That is a form of this impact of mental health consequences of what they're going through right now, even with the COVID situation. So how can we help be more preventative, or just be something, a platform there, to your point, to share those stories and talk about it, to help one another. And to the point of even on the healthcare professional side, to the families that are going through those things. And how can we change the dialogue around not asking, the asking for help, but just that bite size of being able to talk about those experiences. And I think there's a lot to be said, and it applies both on the the veteran and the healthcare side. Is I always say, is like, unless you've been through that particular experience, you can't say that you understand. And that applies to caregiving, that applies to going through a treatment, that applies to deploying. And so the ability to actually connect to someone, like, you may have an awesome support team and awesome family, but we just know that unless they've been through it, they can't say that they understand. And it's just it's not that they don't care, but the ability to actually now connect. And that's really where this technology for us is, being able to bridge that. Even if someone is out on their own, the ability to know that they're able to reach out to someone, regardless of what those things are, on their own terms as well, is powerful. So
Uh, I think so. I understand where you found your motivation from, and what you're, and I understand what it is that you're doing with Family Proud. And I do have some more questions about it, but I want to ask you, well, let me start out by saying this. When I first met you at work, I remember I think I went to Jake, a mutual friend of ours, one day, and I was like, dude, the new LT or OIC every day has some like new idea he wants to do. Like, and I was like, I don't know if we can keep up. Like it's, and what I'll say is, and you know, after having gotten to know you more, you're an innovator is what it is. Like you see possibility, and you have ideas and you have follow through, which is really impressive. So, so my question is, well, and let me say this too. You got your MBA, is that right?
Yep.
So you got you're basically, you're active duty Navy. You basically still are heavily involved with the Navy. You went back to school. You got an MBA. You have a family. You're a caregiver, and you started Family Proud. Question is, how is that even fucking possible? Like how do you manage how do you do it? How do you manage all that?
Well, I mean, yeah.
And what's it been like for you to last maybe 3 or 4 years with all this?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. It's been a blur. It's been real, right? I mean, it's real. Yeah. How do I put this? I mean, to the point, right? So, you know, on the personal side, like, you know, I had a long-term relationship, you know, I lost it. It was, you know, I wasn't making it a priority, and, you know, school, transitioning the reserves, doing my MBA, starting a company, and it, you know, things of my own fault, and, you know, things that you look back and you learn from, but didn't make it a priority. Maybe I took it for granted, and obviously, you know, there's been a lot of sacrifices, right? So I think, how is it possible? You know, it's just obviously been a lot of hard work and sacrifices. You know, some good and some not so good, right? Whether it's for a period of time, health, relationships, friends. I mean, there is only so many things you can do, right? And, you know, you can always talk about, you know, the rules of three, right? Where they say things come in three. Okay, we'll say you're a superstar, you can do four. You know, when you start talking about, like, okay, you know, Navy commitment, reserves, we'll say school, we'll say family, or, you know, relationships, and you say company, right? The bucket starts filling up pretty quick, right? Personal well-being, you know, now that's already at what, 5, 6, right? So when you start dialing it down to like the 3 or 4, to do them well, and, you know, make sure that, you know, they're done. I mean, yeah, super challenge. I mean, it's definitely still very heads down right now, and grinding away. But yeah, you know, I think the positive is that, although there's been, you know, some certainly sacrifices, you know, maybe would have done differently, I think the end state is that it's always been, so for me, so mission focused around the outcome of Family Proud. And if this was just a good idea, I would have stopped a long time ago. I think this is a commitment. It has to be a passion, as you know, as a fellow, you know, innovator and entrepreneur. I think it has to be a passion, to be committed to see it through. Whether when we were deployed in the service, you know, I would do it, whether it's for the mission, but mainly always for the guys, right? Like, I would never let you guys down. I would never let the team down in terms of taking care of our people. And that's always, you know, top priority. And now kind of the same equivalent mission carryover of, these are families in need, right? So it's like, if we, you know, are working on something where the outcome is helping more families, then that's certainly like a heavy driver there, that it's easy to overlook, you know, some of the other nice to haves in life. But, you know, to that point, right, this is a marathon. Being able to, you know, there's no true balance, but I think it comes back to being self-aware. That's both with, you know, mental health, well-being. That's self-aware of the, you know, the relationships you have, and then, you know, certainly self-aware of the sacrifice that is necessary to see it through. So I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know how it happened. You just keep showing up, right? Just keep showing up and working. So
Well, you know, maybe you just said it right. So for one, if you're running a marathon, it's a Kipchoge marathon, because
yeah.
you're hustling. But
Yep.
maybe you just said it right there. You know, you just got to show up, because it's like going to the gym. If you just make it to the gym, you're going to get a good workout in, but it's the couch is tempting.
Right. Yeah.
So if you have but you have to beat the couch, right? The metaphorical couch in a lot of things. Like everything has a couch, I guess. I don't know. I'm just making this up right now, but everything has a couch. Like you could go work on Family Proud, or I'm sure there's a couch that you could sit on.
Right.
You could walk away from the reserves, your responsibilities there, but every time that becomes available, but you avoid the couch, and you just have to avoid and the main thing is knowing, because if I bring it back to the idea of the gym, you get off the couch and you go to the gym because it's worth it, and that it's meaningful to you, and you feel better doing it and you're drawn to it. So I think you have to follow your heart on that one, because you know what's best for you, right?
Right.
And
Yeah, exactly.
and if you believe in something enough, you can get up and go do it, which you just seem to keep doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Every
I
day over
believe
and
in
over.
the value of Family Proud, and we have already started helping families, and just even seeing that, and not always the case, in the service is you apply energy and effort to something, and to see it blossom and grow, and continue to provide the awesome impact. You only want to continue to feed that, right? So it's in that sense, that I feel fortunate in that, and fortunate to have an awesome team. Obviously, this is not all possible by myself. How do I do it? Certainly having an awesome team around you is necessary to grow anything. And I think that's key, whether it's your companion or spouse, or whether it's the team at a larger scale. That's critical.
Uh, so talking about the team, um, talking about teams being part of a team and showing up for the team, which you are the real deal. I'll say that from working with you in the Navy. You are the real deal at taking care of the people that you are responsible to, um, which is awesome. And you've built another team with Family Proud, right? What do you have, like 12? A team of
Yeah,
12, maybe
15 people now, some
15.
full-time, some part-time. Yeah,
Yeah.
got a whole
So,
mix there. Yeah.
uh, I'll just I won't I'm not going to try to lead down any one particular path here, but what's it? I'll leave a really open ended question of what does it mean to you to have built something that now 15 people depend on being there? Give their time to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just like anything. I've been fortunate to have awesome teams. I mean, just as you're awesome on the team, like it's make things easy. I mean, that's so I'm thankful for that. Thankful for the time that I had with you as well. So I appreciate that. But at the same time, now I think it's creating something too. It's definitely humbling. I think there's a lot of humility involved here, in terms of amazing people who have a common mission coming together, and working towards that. And for a while, a lot of them non-compensated, who are truly there to see the vision through. And some people come and go, and there's those that have been there for the entirety of our time, right? But every single person and every minute that's been expended to contribute to the growth of Family Proud, I'm thankful for. And I always say this too, is that it doesn't have to be the best person, but the right person. And that's both, within the team, but also a part of who we are as a family and culture. And so, yeah, definitely thankful for them. I think, how do I feel about it? Obviously, always, humbled by it, and, thankful for their hard work, because there's no way that, it would be possible without them. So,
Did you? What came first? Was it Family Proud or the MBA program?
so Clay and I, the co-founder, we started Family Proud during the MBA program.
Okay.
So yeah,
Didn't have enough going on.
that's right. That's right. But it was great timing, because it was a nice catalyst that we could use a lot of what we were learning directly to the growth of the company. The other end of it too, right? Is an MBA required to start a company? Of course not. Was it a nice to have and an opportunity at the time? Absolutely. But yeah, definitely not required. Met a lot of awesome people, learned a ton, kind of accelerate the process, if you will, a little bit. And coming from the service too, giving a little bit of credibility on the business side, to at least know what's going on is important. Yeah, I think, yeah, it was a big thing to add to the plate, right? So, kind of just jumped off that cliff to get things going. So,
Well, sometimes you have to, that's
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
if you want to pick up speed, the fastest way is to jump off the cliff.
that's right. Sometimes ignorance is bliss in that manner.
um, so the MBA program, was that the accelerated veteran MBA program one?
I did the executive one at UCSD, so I wouldn't say accelerated, but we did it. It was like every other Friday, Saturday type deal. So technically full time, but still more of a flexible schedule. Yeah.
And was that something? Was there some military affiliation with that, or was that for anybody?
It was for anyone. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I know a lot of veterans who are going into business, and a lot of people in general. Well, this show is targeted for veterans. Are curious or are going for their MBA or working to get it. So you got your MBA, you went through that program, you started Family Proud. If somebody was thinking about going back to school to get their MBA, how should they prep, or what should they look for in a program?
Yeah. I think, yeah, for obviously, for me, it was a long time since I'd been in school. So it was a big thing there. A lot of the executive programs, they, are more working professional age. So I definitely recommend looking at those, just in terms of the networking capability. And quite honestly, they're always looking for people with a ton of work experience, which veterans bring to the table. And so, those are, I think, more conducive to, the transition. And especially if it's you're doing your going back to school as part of your transition, I think that's one of the best recommendations, because there's still some form of structure. You still have, there's, you may not have figured everything out yet, but it allows you to kind of explore the space and network and learn what you don't know. And so that's definitely recommended, specifically in Southern California. USC is a good MB, Master's in Business for Veterans program. That's still a master's, but not necessarily an MBA. Obviously, USC network strong. I mean, so there's a ton of great programs, especially in SoCal for veterans. But the executive programs are a nice option, just based on the cohort. But in terms of prep and whatnot, there's what is it? Service to Schools, S2S is a good site, or platform to check out. They do a lot of pro bono and like free prep stuff, and connect you with other veterans that have gone through that program, whether undergrad or grad, whatever type of program. They kind of set you, it's like having a sponsor. So like sets you up with a veteran sponsor of someone who's just gone through the application process or just gotten into the school that you're trying to go to, and they'll like sponsor you and help you along on their own time. So that was a cool program.
That's a really good.
Yeah.
That's a really good tip. Another thing about that MBA program, or at least a foot in the door, at least that was a foot in the door towards this, is all these incubators. So you've been a part of some incubator or accelerator programs. Is that correct?
Yep.
And what were the ones that you went through, if you can say, and tips, lessons learned from doing those?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first year, and it's funny, like when you take a step back, or I'm talking to investors or people, and they're like, "Wait, you started a digital health, like a software company in healthcare, but you don't have a background in software or healthcare." I'm like, "No, not zero." Like that's correct. And but it's all about like who you surround yourself with, both the team, advisors. And just like anything in life, I think being humble about like just wanting to learn, right, and just diving in and learning as much as possible, getting smart, surrounding yourself with people smarter than I am, and figuring it out, right. I think a lot of veterans in the military, I mean, that's what we do. You move into a new position, or you're presented with a situation or scenario. I mean, you just figure it out, right. And so I think you use whatever resources you have at your disposal. We're good at executing with scarce resources, and figuring it out, right? But so to the point of the incubators, those were all ways of just surrounding yourself with people in the startup space, in the business space, in the field that you're looking to dive into and learn as much as possible. So even though like the company was started in an MBA program, you could argue that first year was just Clay and I figuring it out, right? Attending every conference, networking, webinar, reading as much material, as possible, and talking to anyone who is willing to talk to us in that specific field. For me, that was technology and healthcare, and just figuring it out. And every conversation I would have, I would be learning, right? And so, very distinctly, there are many conversations that I felt that it could be an hour call with someone, and that could be like a year's worth of lessons learned and information specifically in the field that I'm looking to dive into. So the the incubators and accelerators only help facilitate those type of introductions to meet people. And it's like the dot, what is it, the line and dot theory, right? You have your XY axis, like bunch of dots, and you throw enough dots on, hopefully there's enough to connect a line through them, right? Of course, you're going to have your dots and outliers just sitting out there that were, you have a call or a meeting and be like, yeah, it was kind of a waste of time. I mean, it's never fully a waste, but maybe it wasn't, didn't fully end up contributing to that line. But yeah, point being, incubators, accelerators, the ones we went through, we did go through Bunker Labs. So that is a good one specific to veterans. They offer some free space. They get you connected with other veterans in the community. That's a good one. I think you're familiar with. There's a couple other ones. Patriot Boot Camp does one where you can kind of attend a session. They do a couple a year. That's a good one to get plugged into on the veteran side. And then we specifically ended up going through like a digital health one that was more specific for what we went through. But point takeaway, definitely just getting to meet new people and build those relationships, and and fostering those, right? I think that's that ultimately helps to your knowledge and success.
Yeah. Something you said in there about meeting people and talking to people and knowledge gained. I learned through the Honor Foundation. They called it a trusted mentor.
Okay.
So somebody who you can talk to, who will tell you the truth, good or bad,
Yep.
whose opinion matters to you. Somebody who
Right.
you take seriously, who you believe will tell you what you need to hear,
Yep.
and you'll listen. It can't be like I can't believe you don't think this is a good idea
Right.
type reaction. Do you have someone like that, or some people like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple advisors that have been with us from the beginning. A couple, honestly, we feel fortunate. There's a few that have been through the entire time, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are critical, right? To hear the hard truth. And one of them always talks about pulling you out of the trees, right? So you're always heads down, trying to cut that tree down in front of you in this forest, and trying to get to the clearing, wherever that is, right? But it's important to have someone to pull you out of the tree line and look and see where you're going and what's going on. And yeah, I'm definitely thankful for them. So it's always good to get a little gut check from them too once in a while. So
That's a really, I like that, the cutting down the trees. That's gonna be pulled out as a clip.
oh,
That
yeah.
was, when we do these shows, I try to pay attention to when somebody says something that's like a universal application kind of mantra or words to live by, and building my own little Rolodex of those that I can
Nice.
share,
Yeah,
because
that's awesome.
I love those, and I apply them. I just said one this morning. So I have a buddy who, side note here real quick, and I'm going to then get to some words to live by. He was in the Navy. He was a great sailor. No major issues. I think one NJP, but no, then he came back and got busted down from like E4 to E3 or whatever, came back up. He was in E5, and he got out on the PTS program, Perform to Serve, back in 2011, which a lot of really good people got cut on PTS and ERB during that time.
Garbage program. Yep.
Yeah, I almost got out of the Navy in protest, like just knowing that could happen to seeing that happen to people at like 16 years. I'm like, oh man, I didn't realize that could. Anyway, he went through some really challenging times after that, like no job, nowhere to live. He was staying with me. Just lost everything, like in an instant. Really, really tough. But he, kept pushing. He got a job working as a contractor. He eventually got into the reserves. He is a senior chief in the reserves, and
Nice.
yesterday got accepted back onto active duty as a
No
senior
way.
chief.
That's awesome.
So he's going back onto active duty, and it's been like a 10-year journey of to get back to this point. But the whole time he kept putting in the work, working hard, doing the right things, getting all his quals, and then some, excelling in the reserves. And anyway, here's the point. I said to him this morning, I said, you know what I always say? I always lead off with, you know what I always say? Luck exists, but it's just a combination of opportunity and preparation. So what you call luck is just your preparation meeting opportunity.
Right.
So you should always be preparing, because you never know when opportunity is going to come. But if he had just done nothing or like slacked off in the reserves, done the minimums, this opportunity would have probably not panned out, right? Because they're looking for somebody who already excels and is obviously putting in the work. So you should always be preparing, because you never know when opportunity is going to come, and that's what I call luck. So
yeah, that's awesome. No, definitely agree.
And I learned all those in SRT and NSW during that time from people who are a lot smarter than I am. So, and I hear from people like you, like it comes from life experience,
Yeah.
So
no, that's awesome.
You know what's funny? Just a real quick funny story about Family Proud. When I was going on we talked about this a while ago, but when I was going on your website looking at, who you guys are and what you're doing, I saw a name on there of a guy. I won't say the name. You can say if you think it's okay, you can say the name. But I had just bought an iPad from a guy. I found him on like Facebook for like Marketplace or whatever, and we met up at a coffee shop. And I'm always sketched out doing that. We met up at a coffee shop, and he's showing me this iPad, and I ended up buying it from him. And then I look, and he's like working with you now at Family Proud.
I think I know who it is. I'm not sure, so I won't say his name, but
just small world.
Small world.
So, if you don't mind, so something I always ask people, because I like to get down to the nitty gritty with this stuff, because I think that's what people, when I talk about people sharing experiences, they need to understand that it's, and you kind of already touched on this. It's not always, things aren't always perfect. There are tough times. Were there any like dark times for Family Proud when you've been building this up over the last few years?
Yeah. I mean, I think any journey has it's some of the challenges are right. You make tough things look easy. Right. And obviously, in my role and, steering the ship, if you will, Family Proud, you don't necessarily, it's important to recognize accomplishments, even if they're failures, and move forward, and all the standard stuff. But even like it's a roller coaster, right? There's like, for every 10 losses you get a win. It's important to celebrate the wins, but it doesn't mean I necessarily share every single little loss. Every no that I get from an investor or vendor or someone, the rest of the team doesn't need to be burdened by that, right? It's kind of this being able to keep people focused and excited and moving forward. But in terms of the company, I mean, there's certainly been things where we've put a lot of time in preparing for, and may have not been selected, things like that. But that's those are, I think the good that we're doing outweighs those moments. I think in terms of like the structure of the company, right? I mean, there's big things in terms of, there have been people who were committed to Family Proud, and they end up walking away because we were an early company, or they weren't being paid, and just certain things, that different priorities. Like, there's no definitely support them in whatever their decisions, but oftentimes it's when people from your team are coming and going, or they leave, that can be tough too, right? So yeah, I mean, it's been the analogy I use with Clay and I use is we are climbing up. Some people take the ski lift up to the top of the mountain, right? And they've got the easy pass, whether it's capital, access, knowledge, whatever it might be. We have definitely not doing that. We're going up the backside of this mountain through the densely wooded forest, and steep slopes, and just in the dark, right? And just, just, just climbing up, literally climbing up the backside, right? Because like, at first it was like, all right, we're getting our gear list. All right, now we're stepping out. Now we're climbing the mountain. And the analogy, it's like we're going to continue to climb this mountain. Like we know what we're doing is good. It's for people that are in need, and we're just going to keep climbing. But we have not been taking the easy path, that's for sure. And so it's yeah, it's been challenging. And I think a lot of the late nights, probably averaging like, for at least now I've dialed it back a little bit, but was averaging like 80 to 100-hour weeks for a good 2 years there, of just working, right, and putting in the hours. But those late nights, like you said, just keep showing up or getting off the couch, if you will, and keep working. I mean, obviously that takes sometimes that that 30-second mental reset of some just clearing the head, and a couple, a little bit of breathing, and then all right, onward, right? But yeah, I think the biggest challenges or the dark moments have just been when you're obviously putting a lot of time and energy and passion into something, and then I think it's just human nature and emotion for whether it's a a rejection or a no or a but just to know that that's it's not going to affect the course of where you're going. It's just makes it a little bit more difficult sometimes. So
Yeah. What are on the other side of it, what have been the highest highs?
The highest highs, that's a good one. It's interesting, and this is one of the things the advisors, I think, was sharing with me. Part of like pulling out of the trees aspect is, we've made the decision to do a lot of our development internally and to grow our team internally instead of just outsourcing, some of our work, which you could argue is potentially cheaper or faster, depending where you are as a company. And, that's a gamble as a software company, but the ability to be growing and facilitating, fostering your own culture and family. And, when the advisor's like, yeah, you're going to be working on this for 10 years and you're going to be able to look back and see the awesome relationships and families that you've supported and, you've hired within the community and you've helped grown that. And the fact that we're starting to do that, and for him to put it in that perspective, I mean, certainly, especially right now, when you think about what's going on, the ability to provide a mission and purpose for others is, I think, for me personally, a high and so, definitely something I'm thankful for there. In terms of the company, we've picked up some big wins in terms of some of the contracts, like winning a small business grant through the Air Force, or being able to partner with different organizations. So those have been exciting, and so that's all forward momentum. But like I said, we are still climbing up the backside of the mountain.
Well, those I've seen you present at one of those competitions, and winning a grant has got to be a good feeling of people believing that you're on the right track and believing in your mission. Because for anybody who's doing a business, they must believe that that's meaningful work to them, which is where it has to start. It has to be meaningful to you,
right?
Or else it won't be fulfilling at all. But then when somebody else says they agree, it's meaningful and it matters, and they want to support it, that's got to be a really good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was like I did the Bunker Labs program, and when I got into Bunker Labs, that's kind of how it felt. Of like, okay, thank you for this opportunity. I hope I do a good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope I did. It kind of sputtered at the end for me because the last like 8 weeks of Bunker Labs, half of it I was on travel for work, and then and then I don't know if you know a story about how I got robbed and all my podcast and video equipment was stolen. So like it was a sour ending, and then I moved to Japan a week after that. So it was crazy right at the end there, which was disheartening, but it's okay, bounce back.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Just figured it out.
Yeah.
That was like the third time I'd gotten robbed that year. Actually, that's a whole nother thing. But I have a video. Yeah. I have a video about it on the YouTube channel. But
I'll check it out.
It was just, dude, hit
that's
after
crazy.
hit, like in 3 different places. Once was in Paso, twice was in San Diego. All different scenarios. Just insane. lost a
That's
lot.
crazy. Yeah.
So anyway, neither here nor there. So let's talk about the app, Family Proud. For a user, what does that look like today?
Yeah. So, you log in to the app. You're able to create a profile based on what your needs are. You can then, as discussed, look to see if there's anyone that you're looking for in terms of that specific adversity. So, look in that specific area. If there's someone with a common adversity, you can connect to specific resources. So, those are specific to oncology right now. And then we just added a COVID specific. So, if your family is impacted by COVID, you'll have access to those type of resources. And then, most importantly, too, the calendar and the registry. The calendar is there's people who are asking how they can help. You can share different tasks with them that they can sign up for. And then conversely, if you're a supporter, if you're looking to support, now you can come in and see, well, hey, how can I help, Jaden or Max out? Okay, let's check it out. There's some tasks. I'll sign up for that. And so even when they share the tasks, like you can get an SMS, an email notification. Now those people can go back and sign up for it. And so that's a nice way to be able to kind of have that accountability. And then the registry, once again, if instead of you're saying, hey, I'm going to donate $100 to go a larger company, then the ability to say, you know what, here's a specific need. I'm happy to help contribute, this amount to this need that the family has. And it's transparent, right? You know where your money's going. So that's kind of where it's at. We're at this like V1 modification right now. We're moving into a V2 new design as we kind of move along here. We kind of put that on hold right now to help out with the COVID efforts. But we'll be re-engaging with the V2 kind of design facelift here in the next month or two.
It's wild that in a pandemic situation, one of the most challenging things that I've heard of people dealing with, especially families, is the person who's sick is isolated from their friends and family uniquely, in this situation. And it seems like now more than ever would be a time that what you're doing can make a difference in a global way,
Yeah, absolutely. And
it seems like exactly the type of thing that people need in a time like this. I hope as Family Proud matures and ends up with, whatever you would call like your, because if you're in a V1 and move into a V2, eventually you'll have like a final, version where it's just, correcting bugs and stuff for a while. And I hope when that happens, there's not another pandemic. But if there is, I'll be happy knowing that there's a program like yours out there to network people in all the right ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, families, there'll always be families. There'll always be families in need. Healthcare doesn't discriminate. There unfortunately, pandemic or not, there are always, unfortunately, a lot of, needs out there for families. So, any way we can support, certainly is what we're looking for.
Is where would people find the app?
Yeah, so right now, if you go to our website, which is just familyproud.com, you can see, get started and click there, and it'll take you right to the app login. So it is web-based, mobile responsive right now. So what does that mean? Essentially, any platform you're on, you can access it. It's not just an iOS and Android early stages, and then later, we can move to that. But right now, any platform, you can access it via the website.
Maybe what if I go on there and sign up and do kind of a YouTube video where I browse the app? Do you think, is that something I could do?
Yeah, you can absolutely.
I can just do that on my own here.
Yeah.
So I'll go try to do that. I'll do like a screen recording and I'll go on there and kind of show people what it is
Cool.
to partner with this podcast, do a YouTube video for it.
Awesome.
So if you're listening to this on your preferred podcast listening app, head over to the YouTube channel at the ScuttleButt Show and you'll find a video where I kind of go on there and dive into the website. Has this been how do I want to ask this question? So the tech piece of it for you, where did you start? What have you learned? And what would you pass on to anybody who's like, I can make it, I'm going to make an app?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have done 0 lines of coding myself. Not to say, there have been people out there that have taught themselves. Awesome. There are ways to do, depending on what you're looking for, platform wise, you can do things. There's some awesome tools out there that you can make some, pretty light lifts that don't require a lot of back end, that you can throw some apps together. So that's awesome. I mean, the first question is obviously asking yourself what you're trying to accomplish with that platform. So for us, we knew that it was, in terms of the vision and what we were trying to do, that there was a lot of moving pieces. It wasn't just a plug and play type app that we were looking to do. We were really fortunate, once again, through one of these incubator programs. One of the advisors from that program actually was a USC alum, connected us with the USC computer science department. And a team of computer science students up in USC actually selected Family Proud to work on for like a semester and a half. It
Oh,
was just over 2
that's
semesters. So
that's awesome.
literally, yeah, like once a week for like 2 terms, I would take the train up to LA, meet the team, you know, bring them dinner, do like a little product thing, and make sure everything's good, and then take the same that night the train back. So like 6 hours train for three hours on site once a week for like whatever 7 8 months, whatever that looked like, and that got us to like an initial Frankenstein alpha. And in that time frame, I was able to recruit and find our current CTO and initial couple guys and gals to work on, and they transitioned it off the USC team and then just kept building from there. So yeah, super fortunate, and when you look at it, a tremendous cost savings as well, like massive. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I
even
bet.
talking to some of our early investors, advisors, they're like, "You did what?" And it's like, once again, right? That's just figuring it out. That's not the normal course there, but I didn't have any other option. I don't know how to code, and finding a CTO or a tech co-founder, or anything in that regard, is obviously one of the greatest challenges for a young software company, or someone who has an idea and looking for that. And there's a lot of cool sites out there. In terms of finding those, I would recommend getting on like your local Slack channels. There's a lot of like tech hub type Slack channels for wherever you're listening from, kind of deal. And yeah, I think the mission and what you're doing has to resonate. I think that's obviously been a huge factor for us, in that early stage. And so, like, our CTO is a fellow veteran Marine, another Marine staff sergeant, actually, which is funny because Clay's also former staff sergeant. And I remember talking to Clay and then Chris. I was like, oh, great, now I got two of you guys I got to deal with, but obviously in a joking manner. Super awesome, and the ability to work with other veterans on the team, also awesome. So yeah, he's been phenomenal, part of what we're doing. So yeah, super lucky.
Yeah. The I always I always I always say on the show, here we go, another buzz phrase. Uh you know, somebody you probably know from a company that we worked with at SRT, from anyway, won't say the name, but I had dinner with one night. He was in San Diego, and me and Scotty and him all went to dinner, and we're sitting there, we're eating, and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting out. I think I was like, what, 6 months away from getting out. The decision had been made.
Right.
No turning back. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. He's like, you come work for us. I was like, yeah, but you would want me to move up to where you're at, for sure. And he said, yeah. And I was like, I'm trying to stay in San Diego,
Yeah.
And he said, well, I always tell people this, you can do anything you want, because veterans have one thing that nobody else has, which is you're trained to train. Like, you're trained to learn,
Yeah.
and in less than ideal conditions, right?
Yep.
So any veteran, I hope, out there knows that and you're a great example, that just by your service in the military, you're equipped with at least this one skill, which is you've learned how to learn. You've learned how to become experts at things, without the manual, while taking fire, like, hey, here's this radio, good luck, you're using it on the field tomorrow.
Yeah.
Here's this new, networking system, you're using it in the field tomorrow. So I hope everyone knows that they can go do whatever they want, because they already have every tool that they need to learn something.
Yep.
And you've obviously had to learn a lot, one thing you were just talking about that was really awesome was networking, right? Like using your networks and building your networks and getting out and meeting people is huge. Like you could try to find your own way, and you could try to apply for things online, different programs. You could try to get into certain programs, but really sitting down for a cup of coffee with somebody is going to take you further, probably.
Yep.
Would you say that that's probably true?
Oh, 100%. I mean, relationships drive everything, drive the world, right? I mean, that's 100% everything. And there are a ton of awesome people out there who want to pay it forward, or just, are willing to talk to people, and like you said, just be willing to learn, and you'll learn a ton. And just keep learning. Like,
Yeah.
that's it, right? So,
Yeah. For anybody listening who's thinking about getting out of the military, I don't know, maybe you can comment on this because you obviously work with some civilians. It is military and civilian is very different. If you've been in the military for a little while and you've gotten used to the way that it is, be prepared for a little bit of a culture shock when you get out. Like, for one, this is, maybe you haven't experienced this, but I know I've talked to a lot of people who have. I'm sure you have, maybe not at Family Proud, but some people you've met. For one, being on time, not a thing. No one cares about being on time. And if you're late, it's like, it seems to be fine to be late. It's like pretty normal. And then the other is like the language, like the language you use with somebody is very different in the tact and the approach. Has it been difficult for you to be a CEO and hire civilians, or has that been easy? Have you just found the right people?
no, I mean, I've gotten lucky, but honestly, I credit my quick learning of into the civilian force due to Clay. And because he was a co-founder, he had separated, medically retired out of the military, a number of years ago, and so he already had made that transition. And so, honestly, as a co-founder, he was like my SEL, if you will, XO. We're two peas in a pod at all times, and so for him to be able to pull me aside, I mean, same kind of construct, and be like, yeah, that's not how you need to, here are things you need to learn, and people aren't going to have the same passion or care as much as you are, and tailor your expectations, and just to learn, all those things you're talking about. So I learned quickly, but thanks to Cliff. So thankfully I had a, if you will, a mentor, someone to be able to kind of coach me through that. But yeah, definitely a thing. And huge, huge shift, right? But it's also, not to value what we bring to the table in terms of some of those, whether you're clear expectations or some of those things, maybe they're not a good fit for the team, not in that sense, but in terms of, what the role they have and whatnot. But yeah, definitely experience the same thing.
It's definitely, it's different. It's different. What about like the, uh, the the admin side of owning a business, running a business, filing paperwork with the government, copyrights, trademarks? I don't even know probably half the stuff you've actually had to do: taxes, payroll, veteran-owned business, disabled veteran-owned business, stuff that you've probably done. What is there anything to guide that process, or is it like good luck, figured out, or do you need a lawyer? Like, what do you even do?
That's a great question. Just hearing all those things, I can feel my anxiety level starting to rise just thinking about it, but not in a bad way. Yeah, I'm just like laughing at it because it's like there is so much, right? And the point is, it is overwhelming. There are awesome companies and systems out there that can help facilitate it, but if you're diving into it first time, step one is talk to someone who's been through it. Back to the relationship thing, who's done it before. Reach out to people who've gone before you, or other veterans, or people in your space. And this goes back to the veteran aspect. The trust and relationship aspect is not the same in outside the military, right? And kind of to your point. And so being able to connect with other veterans, that there's that almost already immediate trust, that they're not going to BS you, they're going to help you out, however they can, to that extent, is the same thing, whether it's figuring out a process, figuring out an industry, figuring out, trying to make a decision. And that goes along with navigating a lot of these resources, on the veteran business side. So there's a ton there. Obviously you could probably come up with like 100 websites and whatnot. There are a couple, like, starter type or startup focused, type resource list. But easiest answer is finding someone who is a little bit ahead of you. And that's a strategy too. Like I've, may become, found mentors in CEOs or startup founders that are like a year ahead, 2 years ahead. So like that way you're grabbing their lessons learned of someone just a bit ahead of you, and so you can continue to learn and accelerate your growth as well. So finding someone who's maybe a year ahead of you, who just started their business, and so some of that stuff is fresh versus someone who maybe 5 years down, they may not remember all the bricklaying, if you will. I think just finding someone a little bit ahead is critical.
Do you have any, so we've been going for a little over an hour,
Nice.
which is usually around the time that I start to think about like, closing thoughts. Do you have any, anything you want to pass on to listeners? Anything at all? Anything you want to plug? Anybody you want to give a shout out to? That was on your mind that you kind of had prepared or had thought about?
I mean, definitely, obviously, if there's anyone out there that has a family in need or your own, or there's anything that, we as Family Proud can do to help you, your organization, your family in any way, especially in the healthcare field, please reach out, and even to me, directly, of course. And so, other than that, and then plug wise, I think, you discussed it too. I think at the end of the day, there are ups and downs, but there can be a lot of downs, especially whether with the transition side, on the veteran side, starting a business, the majority of them fail. I mean, there's a lot of, adversity in that sense too, and uncertainty. But we know at the end of the day that we have each other, right? Like, we may not talk for, a while, but I know that I can call you, and that hop on a call with me anytime. Right. And so I think it's those relationships are the most valuable thing. And to know that, that's, to never be afraid to reach out, and empowering too is to be able to support others. Right. So I think a big thing for veterans getting out is finding some form of purpose or service, like, yourself through, the programming you're doing now, which is awesome. Or for me, it's Family Proud, or maybe it's for someone else like Team Rubicon, or getting involved in some, volunteer organization, like some form of service. Because I think, for people transitioning, that's like the big gap where, you lose a sense of some type of, purpose in that element, and that can be kind of difficult sometimes. So yeah, that's just my, obviously everyone has something different, but, recommendation that I've seen, and, kind of experienced myself too, is, obviously maintaining those relationships, but then also just finding some form of purpose is really important. So yeah, happy to help. We're here as Family Proud, support in any way we can, and any family, that's in need, we're happy to support.
It's been really awesome to talk with you on here. I wish we had done this sooner, but I'm glad we did it now, and I look forward to doing it again whenever you have any updates, or you just want to chat about anything. We talked about Family Proud the entire time, but there's a lot more to you than Family Proud, and I'd be happy to feature you on here and just talk about your story, your career, and all that anytime. Hey, oh yeah, random. I meant to ask you this. I was actually going to ask you before we got on the podcast, because this totally might be meaningless, but at the end of such a good conversation, I'm like, oh yeah, dude, what about this? Here on Okinawa, on Kadena Air Force Base, the gym is the Risner Fitness Center.
Yeah.
Is that any relation to the Air Force pilot?
Dad's side is Air Force, so indirect, but yeah, it's in the.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. That's so awesome.
So now you can think of me every time you're in the gym, Max.
I already do. I already do, because I'm like, I need to ask Jaden. And that's what I say every time. And I go read the the board, and I'm like, I wonder, and I think so. That just that's so cool. I'm glad I remembered to ask you. That would have bugged me. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Navy helicopters, the other end of the spectrum, but all good stuff. So.
Wow. That's so cool. Great, dude. That's awesome. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So again, familyproud.com. If you are going through you or your family's going through some health issues, and you need a way to support and way to get a network going, a community involved, familyproud.com, and get on the app and start using it, leveraging it. That's what it's there for. That's what you guys are there for. I've got is there anything else that you had that you wanted to, any rounds saved?
No, appreciate it, Max. Yeah, appreciate you taking the time.
Awesome. I just accidentally activated Siri with something. I probably am about to do it again. With something I said, so it beeped at me. Sorry about that. Cool, man. Well, I'll kind of sign off now, and let you get on with your evening, and I'll start putting this together so I can get something out probably soon, so people can go check out the YouTube video and all that. So
awesome.
It was my pleasure to chat with you. Thanks for coming on the ScuttleButt show.
Yeah. Thanks, Max. Appreciate it.
I'm working on. I just got shirts made, and I'm working on getting these a distributor from the States to ship these out, because if I shipped them from Okinawa, it'd be like $50 each, and I'll try to figure out when I get that figured out. I'll try to see how I can get you a shirt so you can represent.
Awesome. We'll send you a Family Proud. We'll do a 1-for-1 swap.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you to you. Thank you to your team, and how hard you guys have been working. I've seen it with my own eyes. I remember we sat down and had coffee like a year ago, talking about everything that you're doing, and it's a lot. It's intense. So good for you, keeping up with it. And I hope the listeners enjoyed and got a lot out of it. I hope they did. A lot of good lessons learned from startup, from tech, from college programs and incubators, lessons learned, all of that. It was a really, really, really good time.
Thanks, Max. Appreciate it, man.
And I will talk to you soon.
All right. See you, brother.
All right, Jaden. Bye.
All right. Bye.